Okay, here I go. So I just hit the green button here, or red button. I also have a shortcut for this that you'll see me use, but it is now recording. I use these shortcuts quite often, mostly to stop and start. And so yeah, let's go ahead and get this thing started. I'm going to start out with just showing the HTML, and actually I am recording right now, but I can cut this out in a little bit, and I probably will start a new recording. But we'll say array map method, just for fun. Okay, so I'm gonna use the hotkey to stop the recording. This popped up on my other screen, and I'll want to bring this over here. There we go. And we'll zoom that out a little bit. So this is obviously not something that I want to keep, so I'm going to get rid of that guy. But I am going to go ahead and save this document, and we'll like how to create a screencast. I can definitely overwrite that. I think no. How to make. Okay, so with that all set, now I can begin recording my lesson. So I will start the recording with my hotkey that I created for this. Here we go. So as you can see, I've included the expect.js library in here, and we're going to be using that to demonstrate how to use, oh shoot. Yeah, so there's my first mistake. I opened up the CSS. That is distracting, and so I'm going to stop that. And we're going to just discard that. We'll start from scratch. We'll put this guy up here. Oh, one thing I should probably mention before I record. One of the hardest parts of recording in JSBin is that I can't control whether the cursor itself is blinking. And you might not think that's a big deal, but you'll see that when I chomp these up into little bite-size, like 4 to 5 second chunks, it can be really hard to make sure that I'm managing the state of the way things look, so that as I like piece things together, it all flows naturally. Having the cursor blink twice in rapid succession or something because I put 2 clips together wrong can be a little distracting, and so that can be frustrating. It's kind of a trade-off. I used to just record from front to back and record and talk and everything all together. Some people will record the video and then do voiceover later. I've tried that as well. I don't really like those as much. I really prefer having the shorter, like 4 to 5 second clips that I just record, and then I just deal with the problems with making sure the cursor is in the right place and stuff like that. So anyway, just wanted to mention that before I start recording. So that's why I'm starting this thing up here. In Vim or in Atom, I can make it so the cursor doesn't blink, and I do that, and that is pretty helpful. Just a little pro tip there. Okay, here we go. So here you can see that I've included the expect assertion library, and we're going to use that to talk about how to use the map API in JavaScript. So that was perfect. We're going to add that to the document. I'm going to go ahead and delete that first take just to alleviate confusion here. And then I generally don't need to like watch it or anything. If I can tell that like I recorded something good, then then I just like skip ahead to the end and then look at it, make sure that things look okay, and then make sure, okay, my cursor is right there at the end of double. I probably should have put it up at the top, but it's not a big deal, just as long as I know where it was. My mouse pointer, from here on out, I will try to avoid using my mouse pointer because that is even more difficult to make sure that I maintain state for where it is. And so, yeah, we're going to make the mouse pointer disappear here in a second. So great, now I can record my next lesson. So here we have this double function, and we also have, oh boy, that was dumb. Let's try that again. So you can see we have this double function we're calling and also this pluck, and each of these are supposed to use the map API to pass the test that they have inside of them. Here in the double function, you'll see that we expect our input to be transformed into this expected value where all the numbers are doubled, and we're going to do that using the map API. For the pluck, we have this array of objects, and we're going to expect that we can pluck off the name value off of each of those objects, and we'll use the map API on the input to do that. And if we go ahead and run our code here, we can see that the first test is failing. So let's go ahead and make this pass. That was a little bit long, but it was probably okay. Yeah. Lots of talking and explaining. You want to generally try to avoid doing that. You want to just jump into the learning so that in the first 10 to 20 seconds, people are actually learning stuff. But it's important to make sure that people are on the same page with you so they know what's going on. But like you'll notice I didn't explain the console clear or the console log. Here, it's really not valuable to their learning. They'll pick it up. What's really valuable is this map call that we're making for both of these. So that's why I kind of explain those. You also notice that I had this big pause right here. Obviously, I'm going to get rid of that, and I can do that. But if I get stuck or have a brain freeze or something like that, I just stop and I think about what I'm going to say, and then I go ahead and say it, and we can fix that in post. Great, so let's just make sure my cursor is right where it should be, right at the end of this input, and we'll continue with our lesson. So to start out with the double, we're going to take this out, and we have the map API being called on this input array, and it's being called with this callback argument. The callback is a function, and we're going to call it callback here, and the callback accepts an item, and then it returns what we want to have in place of that item. So for us, if we return just the item, then we'll see that our error message doesn't actually change at all. But if we say the item, if we swap this out for hi, then we'll see that the expected hi is supposed to be equal to that. Of course, it's not. And so if we now take the item and multiply it by 2, then we're going to see that we have a new error, and that's that pluck is failing. So if we uncomment that, then we'll see that everything passes. There's no error thrown. And so we've accomplished our purposes for this callback on the double. That was also quite long, but I think I'm doing okay. And so you just have to kind of judge what you're doing. Doing it long is not a problem, really. It just means that if you do make a mistake, you have to record or re-record a lot more, which is frustrating. So I have that selected, and I can move on. So now if we enable this pluck and we run our test again, we're going to see that this is failing. And so here we'll do the same with this, and we'll say function called callback. And here it's going to accept our item, and the item in this case, in the first iteration, is going to be the ID of 1 and the name of Nancy, and so on and so forth. So here we simply want to return the item.name, and that will make our test pass. Great, so that was a good little chunk. And we'll move on. Obviously, I say that we do 4 to 5 second chunks. I'm not very good at that, obviously, and so yeah, there's that. But it's something to shoot for, I guess. Okay, so that's where my cursor is. I'll use that. So there are a couple other arguments that these functions can accept. You can also get an index and the full array. So if I'm going to console.log here, we'll just do a couple lines, and then I'll console.log the item, index, and array. Then we'll see that the first item here is Nancy, and her index is 0, and then we get the entire array. And then we are on the next iteration, and we have Bob is the item, his index is 1, and then we have the entire array again. And then the next iteration here is the item is Randy, index is 2, and we get the entire array again. Okay, that was good. We'll pull that one in. Kind of did a funny thing with my cursor right around here. I put my cursor up here, which isn't really a big deal, but it's annoying to me. So but that's fine. Okay, great. So now my cursor is not blinking, which is actually great. So I can just make sure I'm focused on this side, and my cursor will be in the right place. So now I just want to wrap up by talking about this argument, and that will demonstrate the whole API that I want to show. Finally, you also have another quote-unquote argument, which is the this context. So if I add in here this, and then I run this, I'm going to get a ginormous output, and what I'm actually getting is window. So by default, the this argument to the map function is the window object, and or the global. So in the context of Node, it would be the global. And so we can actually specify the this argument. Whoops. Yeah, see, that's not good. Probably going to go ahead and re-record that. So let's get this back to where it was before with this right here and here. Go ahead and do that. Finally, there is sort of another argument, and that is the context or the this argument. So if we go ahead and change our console log to include this, then we're going to see this huge amount of output. And what that is the window object. So we can actually specify this by using the second argument into the map function. And we'll just say that this will be an object that we call hello world. Give it that property. And then we'll see in each of our iterations, we'll get hello world as our this argument. And that is the API for map. That was kind of scatterbrained a little bit, but I think it was probably sufficient for our needs. I think people will understand what's going on. So now I've recorded everything. I'm going to leave this exactly as it is, just in case I need to re-record something. And then I'll go ahead and start making my edits.